Janitor Marcus Williams cleaned MIT's corridors every night, greeted professors, and did his job like an invisible ghost. Until that night at 3 a.m., when he solved Professor Davidson's unsolvable math problem in 45 minutes. Welcome to Stories of Black Lives. Before we dive into these powerful stories of respect, justice, and hope, please let us know in the comments which country you're watching from and your age. If you want to see more stories like this, hit the subscribe button. Please don't forget to like our video. This story began on a cold winter night in Boston. While snow pellets hammered MIT campus windows and most people slept in their warm beds, Marcus Williams echoed his footsteps through the corridors. He was a 42-year-old tall, hardworking man. His hands were full of calluses, his eyes tired, but his spirit had never been broken. Every night he lived the same ritual, first starting from Building 32, then moving to Building 2, finally finishing Building 4 and returning home. But Marcus's presence at MIT was invisible to most people. Professors would nod as they passed him. Students wouldn't notice his existence. No one except security guard Jake would have a real conversation with him. When Jake started his shift at 11 p.m., he would ask Marcus, "Hey Marcus, how are you?" And Marcus would respond, "I'm fine, Jake, thanks." These daily interactions formed a large part of Marcus's social life. Marcus's story wasn't just a cleaning worker's story. This was the story of a genius society overlooked, a mind afraid to speak up, and how opportunities were lost. This was the painful story of how America's prejudices hid a genius in corridors for 8 years. The details of his job at MIT were simple but exhausting, cleaning 3 large buildings on campus from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Each building had 4 floors with an average of 12 classrooms per floor. When Marcus entered each classroom, he would apply the same routine: first empty the trash cans, then erase the whiteboard, arrange desks and chairs, sweep the floor, and finally mop. It took about 8 minutes to clean one classroom. 144 classrooms, total 19 hours, 12 minutes of work, including breaks, nearly an 8-hour marathon. But Marcus had never complained, because this job gave him a regular salary, health insurance, and most importantly, the opportunity to support his family. He earned $3,200 per month. It wasn't much by Boston standards, but it was enough for Marcus. He paid his rent, helped his mother, covered his sister's school expenses, and saved a little. No one knew who Marcus really was. No one knew he was a mathematics graduate from Princeton University, that he made it to the finals of the Putnam mathematics competition 3 times during his student years, that his thesis in differential geometry received the highest grade in the department. No one knew he passed complex analysis, real analysis, abstract algebra, number theory, topology courses, all with A fluff. Marcus's Princeton years were bright and hopeful. Professor Helena Morrison was amazed when she discovered his talents. "Marcus," she had said at the end of sophomore year, "you're one of the brightest mathematical minds of this generation. You'll get doctorate offers from Harvard, MIT, Stanford. I guarantee it." And he really had received them. When he graduated, doctorate offers came from 7 different universities. Full scholarship plus stipend from MIT, research assistantship from Harvard, teaching fellowship from Stanford. All his dreams had come to him. A bright future as a mathematics professor was guaranteed. But then a phone call came in August 2016. His mother, Agnes Williams, called crying. "Marcus, your father was taken to the hospital. Doctors say he had a heart attack. You need to come immediately." Marcus's world changed with that phone call. When he rushed to the house in Detroit, he found his father in intensive care. Robert Williams, 58 years old, was a strong man who spent his life working in a factory. But now he was connected to a breathing machine, pale and small looking. The doctor spoke frankly, "But past surgery is essential. The cost is $150,000. He has insurance, but it only covers 60%. Marcus's 19-year-old sister Sarah wanted to study mathematics education at the University of Michigan. Her exam scores were perfect. She was close to getting a scholarship. But father was sick, mother couldn't make ends meet with her part-time factory job alone, there was a house loan, bills were piling up. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He walked hospital corridors, tried to solve math problems, but his mind was on his family. He thought until morning and made his decision. He would say yes to Stanford's offer, but first he would postpone it for a year. After getting his family back on track, he would start his academic career. Just 1 year. He told himself, Dade will get better, Sarah will start university, then I'll go to Stanford. But life never develops as planned. Father's surgery was successful, but the recovery process took a long time. He was unable to work and disability benefits were insufficient. Sarah started at Michigan, but expenses were higher than expected. Mother Agnes was getting older and needed more help. Marcus's a 1-year break extended to 3 years. In 2019, Marcus finally decided to return to his academic career. He wrote to Stanford, explained the situation, said he wanted to reapply. The response was positive. Of course, Marcus, we're waiting for you. But just then his father had a second heart attack. This time it was more serious. Marcus postponed again. 2020 came. The pandemic started. The economy stopped, universities froze, father was hospitalized again. Marcus's Stanford dream was getting further away. Then in 2021 came the biggest blow. 5 years after graduating from Princeton, he was no longer accepted as a fresh graduate to most doctorate programs. His age and diploma date put him at a disadvantage. Marcus moved to Boston during that period. Reasoning better job opportunities, proximity to universities, maybe a chance to do a part-time master's program. He started looking for work in Boston. Mathematics teaching, private tutoring, analyst positions at finance companies, data analyst jobs at tech companies. But the truth was the 5-year gap was creating problems. Most employers asked, "Why didn't you work for 5 years?" When Marcus said, "I had family responsibilities," most companies turned to other candidates. Teaching positions required Massachusetts license, which meant a 6-month training program. Private tutoring didn't provide steady income. Months passed, savings dwindled. Marcus was getting desperate. He had rent, money he needed to send to his family. He needed to feed himself. Credit cards reached their limits. He had to find a job, whatever it was. An offer came from the cleaning company at MIT, Cleantech Solutions. Night shift, $3,200 salary. Full benefits, can you start immediately? Marcus hesitated. This was far from his dreams. But he had no choice. Temporary, he had thought. Just a few months until I get myself together. Then I'll find a real math job. In November 2021, Marcus started working at MIT. On the first day, supervisor Rachel Torres showed him around. The job isn't hard, Marcus, but it's detailed. You need to clean every classroom spotlessly. Professors are meticulous, students are messy. Patience is needed. Marcus learned the job. The first week was difficult. His hands got calloused, his feet hurt, but he got used to it. He found his rhythm, and he discovered something working in mathematics classrooms gave him a strange peace. The equations on the boards, theorems in books, students' notebooks. Everything reminded him of his old world. Sometimes late at night, when completely alone in classrooms, Marcus would look at the math problems on the boards. He would try to solve them in his mind. Calculus problems, differential equations, linear algebra. He would handle them all in his head. But he never touched them, never dared to write. He was just a janitor. Mathematics wasn't his world anymore. Months passed. Marcus became an invisible part of MIT. He would come every evening at 10, leave every morning at 6. Professors got used to him. Students considered his presence normal. He would occasionally chat with security Jake, sometimes greet Elena from the cafeteria, sometimes make eye contact with Thomas from the library. That's all. But mathematics never died in Marcus's mind. At home, he would read mathematics articles from the internet. He followed the latest publications on arXiv.org. He watched lectures by his old professors at Princeton on YouTube. Sometimes he would take paper and pen, try to solve old problems again. But each time reality would hit him, he was no longer an academic. He was a janitor. His friends had stopped calling him. Classmates from Princeton had finished their PhDs, started postdoctoral research. They shared their brilliant careers on LinkedIn. I became assistant professor at Harvard. I got a research fellowship at Stanford. I started tenure track at Berkeley. Marcus would follow them on social media but never comment. What could he tell them? I'm a janitor at MIT. 2022-2023 passed. Marcus's temporary job was becoming permanent. The troubles in the family had decreased but not ended. Father had retired, his health remained stable, but medical bills still came. Sarah had graduated from Michigan, started teaching in Detroit but had student loans. Mother Agnes was aging, needing more help. Marcus occasionally tried applying to academic jobs, but now there was a 7-year gap in his resume. The answer, I had family responsibilities. To the question, what did you do from 2016 to 2023? was no longer sufficient. The mathematics world was advancing rapidly, new theories were developing, new research areas were opening. Marcus was falling behind. By January 2024, Marcus had finally accepted the truth. His mathematics career was over. At 42, with an 8-year gap, the dream of academia was no longer realistic. Maybe he could give private lessons, maybe teach at high school, but the dream of doing research, discovering theorems, writing articles was now in the past. Until that night, January 19, 2024, Friday night. There was a snowstorm in Boston. The city was covered in white. MIT campus was quiet. Most students and professors had gone home early. Marcus started his normal shift. He finished Building 32, handled Building 4, finally came to Building 2. On the 3rd floor of Building 2 was Professor Jonathan Davidson's Advanced Mathematical Analysis class. Room 2370. Davidson was one of MIT's most prestigious mathematics professors, 48 years old, PhD from Harvard, number theory expert, a world-renowned academic, editorial board member of International Journal of Mathematics, research council member of Clay Institute, jury member of Breakthrough Prize in Mathematics. When Marcus entered the classroom, he applied his usual routine. He emptied the trash cans, arranged desks and chairs. Finally, he turned to the whiteboard. Normally, Davidson would clean his board after class. Marcus usually understood from the classroom board always being clean. But tonight the board was full. Mathematical formulas, equations, diagrams, calculations, everything was scribbled. And at the very top of the board, in red pen with capital letters, it said, Millennium PBM OP colon and Annucellular G fossils and all thousand pre-eman HYPHSIs VARINT. Marcus's breath stopped. Millennium problems were the 7 hardest problems in the mathematics world. Clay Institute was giving a $1 million prize to whoever solved each one. So far, only one had been solved, a Poincaré conjecture by Grigory Perelman in 2003. 6 remained. Riemann Hypothesis was the most famous of these, about the distribution of prime numbers, waiting to be solved since 1859. The heart of number theory, the keystone of modern mathematical methods. Even Einstein had called it mathematics' deepest secret. Marcus approached the board and examined Davidson's work. The problem was a variant of the Riemann hypothesis. It was about a special subset of zeros of the zeta function on the critical line. Davidson had used complex analysis, analytic number theory, harmonic analysis techniques. There were pages of calculations. Marcus followed Davidson's approach. The first 3 pages were perfect. The technique was correct. The method was solid. On the 4th page, there was an interesting insight. Davidson had manipulated the functional equation very cleverly. On the 5th page, Marcus stopped. There was an error. A very subtle error. Most people wouldn't notice. Davidson had done extra integration on a term while applying the Mellin transform. The result looked correct but was actually subtly wrong. Marcus's heartbeat accelerated. This error ruined everything. Davidson's approach was fundamentally flawed, but Marcus knew what the correct approach would be. In his final year at Princeton, he had worked on the Riemann hypothesis with Professor Morrison. Marcus had developed a new technique, combination of Fourier analysis with modular forms. Morrison had said, "A very promising approach, Marcus. It could be perfect for your doctoral thesis." That technique could work here. He could go in a different direction from where Davidson went. Instead of Mellin transform, he could use direct analytic continuation. He could incorporate Dirichlet-L functions. Selberg trace formula. Marcus stopped. What was he doing? This wasn't his job. He was a janitor. Being a Princeton graduate didn't change the fact. He was no longer a mathematician. But he could see the problem. He could see the solution. The mathematics accumulated in his head for 8 years wanted to come out. If he missed this chance, it would never come again. Marcus looked around. The classroom was empty. The building was silent. The security camera was at the back of the classroom, not in the board's line of sight. No one would see. He hesitated again. But then Professor Morrison's words came to mind. Mathematics doesn't care about your background, Marcus. It only cares about truth. Marcus took a pen from his cleaning cart. He held it tightly in his hand. 8 years of waiting, 8 years of longing, 8 years of suppressed genius were all flowing into that pen, and he started writing 2:47 a.m. Marcus's hand was dancing on the board. The mathematical knowledge he had suppressed for years was finally gaining freedom. He passed where Davidson went wrong. Then he developed his own approach. Fourier coefficients, Dirichlet characters, modular transformations, Every step fit perfectly. Every calculation flowed naturally, as if he had been preparing for this moment for 8 years. All the knowledge from his Princeton years, all his work, all his intuition was crystallizing at that moment. 3:15 a.m., Marcus was halfway. The hardest part was coming analytic continuation across the critical line. This was also where Davidson got stuck. Marcus took a deep breath and innovated. He combined contour integration with spectral theory. The method was unusual but rigorous. It was working. Step by step, line by line, equation by equation. 3:42 a.m. Marcus was at the final phase. Verification, he checked all calculations. Every term, every integral, every logical step, everything was consistent. The solution was internally coherent. And finally, at 3:58, Marcus wrote the last equal sign. He completed the final equation. He put the final QED. He did it. He really did it. He had solved the problem variant that had defeated the most elite minds of the mathematics world for 165 years. This special case of the Riemann hypothesis was now a theorem. Marcus dropped the pen in his hand and stepped back from the board. Sweat was flowing from his forehead, but his eyes were shining. For the first time in 8 years, he felt truly like himself. Marcus Williams, Princeton graduate, mathematician. But then reality check came. How would he explain this? Who would believe that a janitor had solved such a problem? Who would take it seriously? Marcus panicked. He thought about erasing the board. He could erase everything and continue with his normal cleaning routine. No one would know, no one would ask. But he couldn't do it. This was too important. This was too valuable for mathematics. He had finally expressed the passion he had suppressed for 8 years. He couldn't hide this. Instead, he wrote in small handwriting under the solution. Solution can be verified independently. Best regards, M.W. Then he quickly packed his cleaning cart and left the classroom. His heart was still beating fast. What had he done? How would his life change after this night? That morning at 9:30, Professor Davidson came to his classroom as usual. He placed his coffee cup on his desk, organized his lecture notes, and turned to the board, and froze. On his board was the impossible problem he had left yesterday. But now underneath it was the solution. Pages of detailed, perfect, flawless solution. Davidson's coffee cup fell from his hand. The cup shattered against the floor, but he didn't care. His eyes were locked on the board. This is impossible, he whispered. Davidson approached and began examining the solution line by line. He checked every step. He verified every proof. Every equation was perfect. The approach was brilliant, the technique flawless, the result accurate. No one had been able to solve this problem. No one for 165 years. But someone had done it overnight. Davidson looked at the signature M.W. Who was this M.W.? Which genius had created this miracle? Davidson immediately rushed to his office. He requested security camera footage. Who had entered his classroom last night? Which student? Which research assistant had created this wonder? Security guard Jake, an experienced man in his 60s, reviewed the footage and was confused. Professor Davidson, he said hesitantly. Only cleaning staff entered your classroom last night. No one else. Cleaning staff. Who's that? Marcus Williams. He's been working here for 8 years. Quiet, reliable guy. Never caused any trouble. Davidson's world shook. Cleaning staff. It was impossible. But the evidence was clear. Find this Marcus Williams, said Davidson. Immediately. Marcus was called to MIT that day even though he didn't have a shift. He came with his heart pounding. He knew. He had been discovered. He would lose his job, maybe be sued. When he entered Davidson's office, the professor was studying him. Davidson looked serious, thoughtful. Marcus Williams, correct, said Davidson. Yes, sir. If there's a problem, no problem, Marcus. I just have one question. Davidson stood up. What did you do on the board in my classroom last night? Marcus swallowed. There was no escape. I'm sorry, Professor. I know I shouldn't have. I just saw the problem and solved it. Davidson's voice was calm but amazed. You solved the problem that no one could solve for 165 years in one night. Marcus bowed his head. I'm sorry. Sorry. Marcus, you wrote mathematical history last night. And you're saying sorry. Marcus looked up. There was no anger on Davidson's face, but curiosity. Who are you, Marcus Williams? Who are you really? Marcus took a deep breath. He had nothing left to hide. I'm a mathematics graduate from Princeton University, professor. Class of 2016. Magna cum laude. Davidson's jaw dropped. You're a mathematics graduate from Princeton. So what the hell are you doing here cleaning? Marcus told his whole story. His father's illness, his family's needs, how the temporary job became permanent. As Davidson listened, the expression on his face changed. Amazement was giving way to anger. 8 years, said Davidson. You've been working here for 8 years and no one knew you were a Princeton graduate. No one asked, said Marcus quietly. Davidson stood up and started pacing in his office. This is unacceptable. You're one of the brightest mathematical minds in the world and you're emptying trash here. This is nonsense. Professor, my family. Your family's needs are important, Marcus, but wasting your talent is also a crime. You're not just solving math problems, you're doing mathematics. Real mathematics, the kind the world needs. Davidson returned to his desk and picked up the phone. I'm calling the department head. We'll solve this situation immediately. Professor, I'm just a janitor. No, Marcus, said Davidson firmly. You were never just a janitor. You were always a mathematician. We failed to see you. The next hours were blurry for Marcus. The department head came, a call came from the dean. Other professors rushed to the classroom to see the problem. News spread at MIT. The janitor had solved one of the hardest problems in mathematical history. That evening, when Marcus returned home, his head was confused. Dozens of messages had come to his phone. MIT had offered him a research position. His old professors from Princeton had called. The mathematics world was talking about him. But most importantly, Davidson had told him, Marcus, by hiding your talents, you're doing injustice to both yourself and the world. Mathematics is waiting to speak in your language. Professor Davidson sat at home that night thinking. In his 20-year academic career, he had never seen anything like this. A man walking through MIT's corridors, quietly doing his job, solving one of the mathematics world's greatest problems in one night. This wasn't just a discovery, it was a shame. How could the system have ignored such a genius for 8 years? Davidson explained the situation at the department meeting the next morning. Colleagues, he said, miracle happened among us last night. But at the same time, we saw how blind our system is. Marcus Williams is a mathematician who graduated with honors from Princeton, Putnam finalist, differential geometry expert, and we watched him empty trash for 8 years. There was no sound in the meeting room. Professors were looking at each other. No one knew what to say. This isn't just Marcus's story. Davidson continued. This is the story of how many geniuses we ignore. The story of how many Marcuses live invisibly among us. Department head Professor Elizabeth Chen leaned forward. Jonathan, what do you propose? Let's immediately give Marcus a research position. But not just that. Let's start a talent discovery program for all employees on campus. Cleaning staff, security personnel, cafeteria workers, technicians. Include everyone. That week there were big changes for Marcus. MIT offered him a full-time research associate position. His salary tripled. His own office, research budget, the right to supervise doctoral students. Everything developed so fast that Marcus's head was spinning. But the real change was inside Marcus. The mathematics passion he had suppressed for 8 years had been revived. Every morning, when he came to his office, he would pass that board. The board where the change began. And every time he would smile. When choosing his first research project, Marcus didn't hesitate. The program he named Hidden Brilliance offered mathematics education to all employees on campus. In the evening hours, on a voluntary basis, everyone could learn mathematics at whatever level they wanted. When the program started, 12 people registered. After 6 months, the number rose to 50. After a year, 150 people were in the program, and the results were surprising. Cafeteria worker Maria Santos was afraid to use a calculator at the beginning of the program. 6 months later, she had finished the calculus course with first place. Ment offered her a position in the accounting department. Security guard James Patterson was someone who couldn't pass high school math. But thanks to his geometry talent discovered in the program, he's now studying architecture part-time. Cleaning worker Elena Rodriguez started helping her children better by learning Spanish mathematics terms. Her daughter is now studying engineering at MIT and talks about her mother's pride. But the program's biggest success was Sarah Kim. Sarah, who was a laboratory technician, worked in chemistry but had a passion for mathematics. With the advanced calculus techniques she learned on her own in Marcus's program, she began analyzing laboratory data. The patterns she discovered became the subject of 3 different research articles. The problem Marcus solved created an earthquake in the mathematics world. After Clay Institute officially verified the solution, they gave the $1 million prize to Marcus. But Marcus didn't keep the money for himself. He donated the entire amount as a fund for the Hidden Brilliance program. "This money isn't just mine," he said at the award ceremony. "This is the money of every talented person waiting to be seen. This is the money of every genius lost because they weren't given a chance." Marcus's story resonated in the media. CNN, BBC, New York Times, everyone wanted to write the janitor to professor story, but Marcus remained modest. "I'm not special," he said in interviews. "What was special was finally having people who saw me." His former professor from Princeton, Professor Morrison, called Marcus to congratulate him. "I never forgot you, Marcus," she said. "I always wondered where you were. This was what I wanted to see, not just your talent shine, but your character too." Marcus's family was also extremely proud. His father, Robert, despite his heart problems, had come to MIT to see his son's office. "You were always my source of pride, Marcus," he had said, "but now you're the world's source of pride too." His sister Sarah now brags at her school in Detroit saying, "My brother is a professor at MIT." She tells her students Marcus's story, emphasizing the importance of never giving up. His mother Agnes is most happy about Marcus's happiness. "For 8 years I saw the light in my son's eyes go out," she says. "Now it's shining again." Marcus's position at MIT became permanent. He was promoted to tenure-track assistant professorship. He started to establish his own research group, but he never broke his connection with the cleaning team. Every Friday evening he eats with them, chats, tries to make sure none of them feel invisible. "I don't forget," says Marcus. "Last night I was emptying trash, this morning I'm proving theorems." The difference is just a chance, an opportunity. And I believe everyone who gets this chance should give it to someone else too. The impact of the problem Marcus solved in the mathematics world continues. New research directions based on his solution opened. Many young mathematicians are trying to develop Marcus's technique, and Marcus mentors all of them. But perhaps the most important impact is the change in MIT's approach. The university now sees all its employees as a potential talent pool. Similar programs started at other universities, taking the Hidden Brilliance program as a model. Harvard, Stanford, Yale, all are looking for their own janitor to professor stories, and they're finding them too. Because Marcus was right, talent is everywhere, you just need to see it. 2 years later, Marcus gave a TED Talk. In his speech titled, "The Invisible Genius Among Us," he said, "I'm just someone lucky. Lucky because Professor Davidson came to his classroom that night. Lucky because he asked questions with curiosity. Lucky because the system embraced me." But how many Marcuses are still invisible? How many geniuses are still emptying trash, serving food, working security? If you're looking for a Marcus too, you don't need to look far. Maybe they're working right next to you. Maybe it's the person you greet every day. Maybe someone whose name you don't even know. All you need to do is look, really look. He received a standing ovation at the end of his speech. But for Marcus, the real reward was the people who approached him after the speech. All were telling their own stories, saying they wanted to discover their own invisible geniuses. Today, Marcus Williams is an associate professor at MIT. He still works in the same building, walks the same corridors. But now it's different. Now he's seen. And more importantly, he's helping others be seen. Every evening when he goes home, he passes that board, the board where the change began. Now it's clean, full of new problems. And Marcus smiles, because he knows that sometimes the biggest changes begin in the quietest moments. Sometimes the world's brightest mind works where no one looks. And sometimes, just sometimes, that mind finds the courage to show itself. Marcus's story isn't just the story of solving a math problem. This is the story of every person waiting to be seen. This is the story of opportunity reaching those who deserve it. This is the story of never giving up, because you don't know. You never know that the next genius is passing by you. Maybe they're working right next to you now. Maybe they're cleaning your building. Maybe they're working in a job you never notice. The question is, are you looking carefully enough to see them? And if you are that hidden genius, Marcus has a message for you. Don't hide. The world needs your brain, and it's never too late to be where you deserve to be. Is there a Marcus Williams inside you? Now is the time to show them to the world.